Good afternoon. I'm Carl Garth and welcome to the Champion Chat with Councillor Alison Champion. Good afternoon, Alison. How are you today?
Oh, Carl, I'm fantastic. How are you going?
Oh, nice after a weekend. So I'm doing quite well, thank you.
That's good. Good.
Today we're reviewing the Banyule City major projects and also coming up to ANZAC Day, what events have been scheduled for Banyule. So,
Mhm.
Alison, over the last year, we've talked about a number of the initiatives that Banyule Council has completed. But I think now would actually be a really good time to get a review of major projects that are currently underway that impact Banyule.
Mm.
And one of the first that I would like to discuss, and it's probably the biggest one, is the North East Link, which I understand is a state government project.
Mhm.
But I'm also aware that Banyule are still advocating for a number of items, such as improving the Watsonia railway station,
Mhm.
access from Elder Street to Watsonia Village Town Centre, and also advocating for a safer intersection in Rosanna and Heidelberg, among other things.
Mhm.
So I guess the question is, it is a state government project.
Mhm.
Why is council lobbying the state government on these types of suggestions and requirements?
Really simply because the community is asking. The community and we know where we live. We understand where we live. We understand how we work. We understand how the area works, both as someone driving a car, a truck, or someone, riding a bike, or someone walking, because you're a pedestrian, when you're going to and from schools, to and from shops, to and from the station, bus stops, to and from each other's homes. We know how the area functions.
Okay. So these requirements or suggestions, were they actually sourced through the council going and lobbying, not lobbying, the council going and actually talking to residents, not the state government?
Correct.
Okay, interesting.
Mm.
Has there been any feedback from the state government on any of these suggestions or requirements?
Um, there has been feedback. Mm. Um, Probably started around the EEF process, so the environmental effects scheme process, which was several weeks long. It was being held at the Veneto Club in Bulleen,
Yes.
and it was possible to just walk in and attend those. And you could speak at those, and there were and essentially at that process, which was conducted after the announcement of which of the four
Yep.
alleged routes were going to be constructed. Um, Many of our knowledgeable community spoke at this process. There were also lawyers involved in this process presenting arguments. There were specialists in the environmental field, the EPA,
Hmm.
etc., were involved in these conversations. So it wasn't just people who are passionate about the area. They also have qualifications and essential knowledge about the area, not just how it functions, but also, the ground. What's in the ground? What's in the air? Pollution, impacts, noise, etc. All of this was part of the conversation. And many of the specialists put forward, as well as our community, put forward uh, alternatives, suggestions, other ideas. And while the recommendations from the process were presented to the minister, or the ministers involved at the time, as well as the Premier, none of them were agreed to,
Right.
listen to, whatever expression you want to use. And since then, so that was sort of 2018. And since then, our community has asked us to please advocate, connect with the state government representatives and push for certain things. So, and that's what we have been doing. And a couple of years ago, when Councillor Elizabeth Neely was the mayor and I was the deputy mayor, there were forums held, and obviously state representatives were requested to attend, and our community told us what they wanted to see. And the project had obviously moved along, and it
Yep.
was like, well, we really want to see the link. So we wanted to see that the Northeast Link, the section of the Northeast Link from sort of Grimshaw Street down through to Lowell Plenty intersection, which is what I think you mean by Rosanna, was actually undercover. And there were a couple of sections that were open.
Yes.
So we have the bridges across which connected Yallambie and the east side of McLeod, the east side of Watsonia, across to the west side. Some of the link is going to be undercover as a result of this huge forum that we had, huge piece of feedback, but not all of it.
Yes.
But not all of it, for whatever reason. So feedback does come back, mostly with, we're not going to do this, but you can suggest this.
Okay.
And there's probably a little bit more of, we're not going to do this.
Well, considering the cost blowouts, I could probably almost could have foreseen that being the outcome.
Mm-hmm. And it was no different for the rail duplication, which is that's another story. So it was no different from that. But the Northeast Link project will be continuing for another, 6, 7, 8 odd years. Yeah.
Which probably brings me to the next question then, which is, what will council's focus be over the next 12 months as work on Northeast Link continues?
Yeah. Again, the council provides the conduit. They are the conduit between the community and the state. So we do assist our community with connecting them with the Northeast Link organisation, as well as state representatives. Our officers do connect with the state representatives and the bodies that are working on the project. So our officers connect with these groups more so than we as councillors do. So the officers have actually signed confidentiality agreements, which essentially means that in order for council to be included in the conversations with state, the officers need to sign confidentiality agreements that they actually contribute to the technical outcomes that suit Banyule under the design of this project. And by the way, I do mean design, I don't mean plans. No one has seen, no community member, the plans themselves have not been presented to the community, they've just been designs. Okay, there are no engineered plans that have been presented to community. It's just the designs.
Yep.
So the community is seeing designs. So you go onto the Northeast Link website, NELP website, and you see what I like to call pretty pictures.
Yes, they are. I have been there.
Yeah. So they're designs. They're not engineered drawings. We're not going to see those, whereas the officers might.
Okay.
And so the officers can contribute. So we do have residents, certainly in Viewbank, who are very concerned about the sound.
The tunnel being, is it going to be deep enough, etc.
And you know, and the dust. And it's a case of, look, it is a major project. We can advocate for time limits and restrictions, but whether they will be followed is another thing. Yep. We can certainly advocate to the state various levels to look at tree planting is a big issue right now. It is devastating driving up or cycling up or walking along Greensborough Highway.
Yes.
When you go up that way or down that way, there's just, it's barren. And it's, you know, this time 2 years ago, there was just trees everywhere. It's devastating. As you go into the metro, further up to the M80, when you start turning onto the M80, up north of Watsonia North, you can see that there's more works. Obviously, there's more works, and a lot of the trees have come down. And you see diggers at the moment. Yeah, so they you know, so that's happening. So a big thing for Banyule is that there is tree planting. So we're certainly pushing for the authority, if that's the right word, to manage the tree planting.
Yep.
when the time comes. So we want to ensure, look, we are responsible for our urban forest strategy, which has recently been passed through council. So we do that really well. Okay, we do manage our trees very well. So we're requesting that 2-year-old trees, 1 to 2-year-old trees are planted, not tube stock.
Yep.
Tube stock actually has a very, very limited chance of survival. So we actually want 1 to 2-year-old trees that have started their growth to be planted.
Semi-mature.
Yep, planted, and we manage them. We're asking that Banyule manages those for the following 2 years
Yep.
in the locations that we know they will be needed based on the urban forest strategy.
It's really ironic for me. As you know, my background is I was based at Watsonia Barracks during the 80s and part of the 90s. In 86, 87, the front of the barracks there used to be a 5-hole golf course, 6-hole golf course.
Okay.
All right. The suggestion came down federally that it would be good to plant, to basically reforest that entire area. And they did. Those trees that have been cut down were actually put in there in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. 20 odd years later, when we're all talking about we want to keep putting more trees in, etc., a reforestation that was done in the late 80s and 90s has been basically pulled up.
Mm-hmm. So, and that area, that piece of land actually was federal land.
Correct.
Was federal land. The state took over. State took over. Which I was actually looking at that when I heard that was going to happen. I've gone, oh, look, good luck with that one. But no, that went ahead. So the state took over that. And we have, a lot of barren land. So that's one example of council really making sure that we contribute. We have the authority to contribute to the replanting. Another thing too, at Watsonia Station there, where there's the massive piece of public land at the intersection of Watsonia Road and Greensboro Highway, where the car park, there's a plan for a great big car park to be built.
Yes.
Now, yes, you build a multi-level car park and it's full for the day on weekdays.
And
then what? What about overnight? What about on weekends? What are we doing with that? And it's just there.
Cannot answer that one for you.
Yeah. No, that's all right. We know the answer. It's a rhetorical question. So it would be more logical if, sure, we have a car park, but we also have some sort of housing as part of the car park. And with that, we've got, there's, we're all banging on about, state's government's banging on about being in, having not enough housing for people coming into the area. Well, wouldn't you pop some housing, a few levels of housing on there, whether they're social housing or affordable housing, but we do that. And that way people are still in the area, people coming home to the area, and they use the facilities and they don't need their cars. So
let's move on from the Northeast Link, because there's one project that Banyule is actually running, and I really do want to talk about this one. That's the Bellfield Community Hub and Residential Development.
Yeah.
Now, as I understand it, this project's actually got 3 main parts. You have the residential, you have the community hub, and then probably one of the most important things for me is social housing. Can you tell us a little bit about those 3 parts?
Yep, I can do that. So we did refer to this actually, I think, in the December podcast.
We did, yes.
Yeah. So this is a journey. We're in a project where we're getting up to part number 3, which is the residential housing. So let's talk about what's there. So we have the 3 parts, and the hub itself was completed coming up for 2 years ago now. So about 18 months ago, it's coming up something like that, 18 months, 2 years ago. So that's the public space. So that's we had our first there this year was the first Christmas lunch it's not the first Christmas lunch, but it's the first Christmas lunch there. So
Yes.
we had the first Christmas lunch there. It was very successful for those members of our community who are maybe disadvantaged or lonely. So that went very, very well.
We
So
did actually talk about that as well on our
Mm.
Christmas broadcast.
Yeah, we did. So that was brilliant. And that is in a very big space that can be divided. So there can be big function room or smaller function rooms. The maternal child health services there. The Audrey Brooks Kinder is there, or childcare is there. There are other meeting rooms, and there's also now a pop-up library. So the
Right.
pop-up library was installed in there in January. And so where reception is, or the entry at the entry there was set up as a reception area, and that's actually been removed, and now there's a library. There's a pop-up
Okay.
library there. And so that complements Ivanhoe Library Cultural Hub. So that's what there's for. And one of our oldest residents, 100 years old, got her first library card there. So that's exciting.
Hey.
So that's available. That gives you some idea. It's a beautiful space to go and meet people. There's a lovely community garden there as well. You can go out and have a look at that. So that's a really good public space. Okay. Next to it is the Launch Housing project, which was a combination of state government and local government or Banyule and Launch Housing. And that actually opened, if that's the right word, around November-ish, October, November. And that's social housing so there are 58 dwellings there of various sizes. So anything from like a studio kind of accommodation through to sort of a lot of two-bedders there. There's the odd three-bedroom, but most of them are one or two bedrooms.
So that's 58 social housing properties.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. In the one
Good.
building. And so they've got their own facilities. So their own little kitchen, like a small, imagine an apartment.
Yep.
Or a self-contained apartment. What is it? Self-contained apartment that you might go on a holiday in. They're like that.
Right.
They're just like that. And so some of us, we had the opportunity to visit in January after some people had moved in. And the process has been underway. So there was staff there. So it's a staffed accommodation. So we were given a tour in January, and we got to see the public kitchen, which is huge, and the public dining area, which also has rooms, sort of little meeting rooms. If any of the residents need to meet with, a carer or that kind of person.
Okay.
And that's all downstairs, and then we go upstairs, and upstairs, you've got all your dwellings.
So you've got self-contained apartments with their own kitchens, but there's also a community space, kitchen, etc., for them to potentially meet, have that's what I'm looking for. I won't say barbecues, but at least have a function.
Family over, have function, or have people over. If there are more people than can fit in your dwelling, then yes, you can possibly use the kitchen downstairs. And the feedback we've had from the staff who manage it, they've let us know, look, there are tick boxes that people need to meet, which sounds a little bit harsh and insensitive, but the reality is there needs to be evidence that the residents who are there really do require this type of accommodation. Yep. So I spoke about a lady called Kylie, who was leaving a very violent domestic violence. I'm just going to put my glasses on so I can read my notes. So she was leaving a domestic violence situation at home, and she applied obviously for this, and she achieved it. And she's now feeling above anything else so much safer. She feels safer, and she can get on with her life now. And she is so grateful. She is just so grateful. So this is a really good example of social housing working really well, which is something that would work really well maybe on the top of a car park in Watsonia. That's just a thought. So they're the two dwellings that exist right now. You can see them, you can drive to them, or cycle to them, or walk to them. So they're there. And then the other big piece of land is for the residential. So that's your standard residential community that will involve, I think that will also include a community garden, but they're standard, townhouses.
Right.
So they're now the notes I have for that. So my understanding is that that's all on time. So you asked, I know you're going to ask this. Everything's on time and within budget. Later this year, it's expected the other private residences will start to be constructed.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is all on the old Banksia High School site that council ended up buying several terms ago. So I've been in council for almost 2 terms. So it was 15 odd years ago, something like that.
So this really is a partnership between local, state, but also private enterprise.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
fantastic. This is just such a perfect example of how all can work together for the benefit of those who need it most.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, what and who were the main drivers behind this project?
Oh, well, so being the Banksia High School site, so that was a state-held piece of land.
Yeah.
So that would have been, they chose to put it on the market to sell it. And then the officers and the council at the time were in a conversation. And originally, so it was a high school that wasn't in use anymore for whatever reason, and was due to be demolished. And so then we would have been left with, I say we, I mean, the community would have been left with a very empty block of land. So the driver behind it was,
I think they kept the sports complex, didn't they?
Yeah. So how do we use this space effectively? What are we going to do with it? So yes, the original idea or the original plan was to put 5 basketball courts there at council's expense. That was the original council plan, to put 5 basketball courts there. And then later on, we've got La Trobe University creating their sporting infrastructure. And so the conversations ended up being, well, what if we, instead of putting the 5 basketball courts on that land, that we invest that money into La Trobe instead? So La Trobe takes care of a variety of sporting areas, and we contribute to that. And that's what actually happened. So that still leaves us with a big piece of land that we're not doing anything with now. And we actually worked out it will be much better use if we try to create a central community space centre, which is now the hub, and some accommodation around it, addressing the needs of a variety of socioeconomic groups and income earners. Yeah. So that's been a lot of conversations over many years. Easily 15 years. Yeah, to come to what we came to. And it's a long journey and we're very excited. So, yeah. And then across the road is, the renewed football ovals, new pavilion there, Ford Park, and the new pavilion, which is fantastic. We went through that a couple of years ago now. So that's all being used. The Ford Park ovals were practice for our Australian women's soccer team. So that was used for practice. So it's very high standard sport complex there. And park, there's just a park there. If kids want to go and play in the playground, there's a really, really nice park, which is used. So the area is being regentrified. So as we have more people move into just that big block of land with all that accommodation, those facilities around are ready for them to be used.
Yep. Look, and with the Matildas now moving to the La Trobe facilities, it just means that now the community's got a top-class facility all to itself.
Yeah, that's right, it does. And we're in the process, because we've got the library there as well, we're really working on maybe residents in the social housing next door to pop across, because the beauty of a library is that it's free. Do you know what? You don't actually have to be a member to go and sit and read a book.
No.
You don't have to be a member. You can just walk in and find a book and sit down on the chair and read it. So for those within a lower socioeconomic class, there's opportunity for education here and connection with other people. And the library staff are fabulous. So that's what's
Okay.
really, really exciting. So that's where we are really excited that we changed plans, changed our ideas, did what we did, and created this great space in Bellfield.
Oh, fantastic outcome.
Mm.
Yeah. Look, the other project of note would be the Cartmell Street car park.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'd love to understand a little bit more about this project. What's its aim and what benefits does council hope to achieve?
Yeah. So we've got a big car park in Cartmell Street, and the site itself is look, it's actually, I'll tell you about the zoning. A lot of construction comes out of the zoning of land.
It
So
actually might be a good idea for us to say where Cartmell Street is actually,
in
Alison.
Heidelberg, it's in the Heidelberg Activity Centre. Okay, so anything in any piece of land or title in an activity centre is likely to be built up.
Yep.
Okay, and we know that in Heidelberg there's some beautiful homes that were built, in the neighbouring streets. They're just also in the activity centre, and the vision for an activity centre is that we bring people in. So that's through accommodation, but also through commercial services and facilities. So at the moment, we just have a car park essentially at ground level in Cartmell Street.
Yep.
Because it's in a mixed zone and a growth zone, so it's really important to understand. So we get a lot of objections at these kinds of projects, and it's understood. It's understood why. But what also on the flip side is these pieces of land are in a growth zone, which is set, and the zones are set by the state. So it's in a growth zone. So it's a very good chance there is going to be something bigger than or higher than the land coming. So in this case, with the car park, yes, it's just a piece of land at the moment with car parking, but what is looking to go in there is accommodation, dwellings and car parking, as well as commercial outlets like food and beverage outlets, for
So
example.
basically a multi-level car park,
Yep.
residential and commercial
Yeah, correct.
properties.
Yeah, correct. So your commercial is usually around street level. Underneath is your car park, and then above your commercial is your residences. Okay. And the reason for this is we've got opportunity for, first of all, having a lot of people inhabit in the one spot. Another thing is they've got really easy access to facilities. And if they don't have a car, that's fine. They've got public transport available to them, significant public transport. If they do have a car, they've got a car park there's a car park underneath.
Yep.
Okay. So we've got, and the other thing too, so we've got Burgundy Street. So it's essentially a block from Burgundy Street, and in between is Sheffield Lane. So there'll be bike parking and lockers there for those who want to use their bikes. There will also be vehicle charging stations as well, electric vehicle charging stations in that space. There's accommodation as well, like I said, so it's private accommodation. And we're looking at the heights. It's not going to be just your standard block of I don't know, apartments or high rise or whatever you want to call it. What council is doing now is we're conscious of the streetscape and the frontage. We're conscious that we not only need to address the number of dwellings and the number of homes that people need, we're also looking at, well, what does it look like from the street? So a really good example of something similar would be on Bell Street, the Summer Group apartments on Bell Street. So the front of the building at the street is lower than the back of the building, which you can't see from the street. So that allows for, so each level is indented and allows for gardening and as in garden plantings. It
Mhm.
allows for greenery. It allows for a patio and a bit of open space for those living in the apartments. And again, a central meeting space, social space as well in these apartments. So it's not just a big box with a whole lot of apartments.
Interesting. You just talked about spaces for growing greenery. There's a big push in the Melbourne CBD at the moment for a lot of those towers to now turn the top into basically commercial farming.
Yep, and gardens as well. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, and I'll talk about that a bit more with the Rosanna Library. That's the roofs are meant to be in use for exactly that sort of thing.
Okay.
Mm.
Now, just on Cartmell Street,
Mm.
when I did have a look at the project and the plans, there
Mm.
was an intention to sell notice given in 2021.
Yeah.
Has the land actually been sold? Because I couldn't see any notification on that.
Yeah, that's all right. And that only went ahead in December. So the December meeting, so December 2023, in the meeting there, that's an item, that was an agenda item
Okay.
um, that came. So, yeah, so the answer to your question is yes. So, yes, it has been. The council meeting agenda of the 11th of December, you're able to read the outcome. And if you want to see it online, you can see it online. So there were several objections. There were several objections. It was a fairly vocal item.
So does that mean that a sale did or didn't go ahead?
So that's gone ahead. No,
A
that's gone
sale.
ahead. So yeah, that's got there are always going to be objections
Yep.
to a development. Always, no matter where it is, there's always going to be objections. Okay. So we've got a building that is across 10 levels
Hmm.
with 114 residences, and then in the middle is your commercial premises, which are likely to be a bunch of food and beverage. So that development is expected to begin later this year.
Okay. And are we talking 12 months, 24 months for it to be completed?
Yeah, within 2 years of a permit being issued.
Right.
Okay, so the meeting was in December, so very soon after that, the permit would have been issued. Okay, so they've got 2 years to at least start the construction, but usually they end up moving pretty quickly on
Okay.
that. So there's an expectation it will be started very soon if it's not already started, and then completed within about 12 months, depending on the ability to access materials.
Is there also is there an allocation for affordable housing for any of those 114 dwellings?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of in that particular building. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Mm.
Um, Look, Alison, thanks for the overview on the main council projects. Uh, I'd really like, could you give us a little bit of an update on maybe some of the other projects that are happening at the moment as well?
Yeah, we've got another couple of major ones. The Rosanna Library is one that's going ahead. Now, at the moment, when you look out of the train station towards uh, the library side, the Turnham Avenue side, you can see there's some cyclone fencing in place.
Hmm.
So that when you see cyclone fencing around something, there's a really good chance it's coming down. The building's coming down. If it's around trees, that's actually a different story. It's actually a tree protection zone. But this is some cyclone fencing that has gone in.
Yep.
So it'll be later this month. Demolition is expected to take place, and then construction is meant to be completed by the end of the year. So the building, now this item, part of this item came to council at the last meeting,
Mhm.
about a week ago now. That was our last meeting. So on Monday the 8th, so Monday the 8th of April, the Rosanna Library is an item on there. There are questions around the value of it and why it's changed over the last few years. The reason for the change is that it is actually going to be a 3-story building with a garden on the top. So again, using roof space. So a 3-story building with the garden on the top. The reason for the 3 stories and not the 2 is that not only will the Yarra Plenty Regional Library services be run out of that, but that's not only going to include book borrowing and computer access, but it also there are going to be meeting rooms and other facilities like the maternal child health service will be run out of that. There's a toy library, so there's space for the toy library that will go in there, and the garden rooftop. And like I said, the community meeting rooms. So there are a variety of facilities and services in that building, and it's not just a library. So hence the item that came to the meeting on the 8th of April regarding the changes to the value of the building, of the property.
Do any of those, how do those changes impact the Heidelberg Theatre Company?
Carl, you read my mind. That's actually what I was just about to talk about. So many of the community talk about Woolworths and the library, but there's actually a third. There is a third service or facility in this space that is occasionally being questioned by people. So the Heidelberg Theatre Company is going to be retained. So the building will be retained, and it's going to be modernised. So some of the facility, it's a very old theatre, and so we're modernising many of the facilities. So it'll become a bit more accessible, so more accessible, friendly for, say, wheelchair bound people, or if you struggle with walking, there'll be ramps, so forth. We're going to be upgrading the backstage. So there's a bit of a better backstage for the performers, and there'll be some additional storage. So a lot of that's really going to happen on the inside rather than the outside.
Yep.
Yeah. So the Heidelberg Theatre is being retained, and it's going to be modernised a bit. So that'll benefit from this project. Yeah. So that's your Rosanna Library. So watch out for some changes there over the next few weeks. Get your photos. If you're like me and you see the cyclone fencing and you go, oh, that's coming down, I actually go and take photos.
Okay.
For nothing except myself. It's just for me as a record to say, oh, that used to be there and now it's that. So pop out, get your photos this week, because the Rosanna Library is not going to look like that much longer.
Right.
Okay. The other big project that we have is the town square, the Watsonia Town Square.
Yes.
Okay. So there are a few things happening certainly in April and into May. Things like, all right, so we know that Watsonia Road has been one way for a bit. Okay, it's now
it's actually 2 ways now. Yep.
Back to 2 ways now, exactly.
Yep.
So it's been reopened in both directions. So as of, I think, last week. So we're looking at the T intersection of Morwell Avenue. So that's near the RSL. So there's some construction work going there.
Yeah.
There's some prepping for new traffic signals, which allow for safer pedestrian access, obviously, and vehicle movement and a bit more open space. So at the moment, the construction's underground. So there are a few poles. You're not going to see much, but there's a little bit of delay in moving back and forth. And there'll be new footpaths and curbing constructed there over the top when the underground work is being done. There are going to be 2 power poles removed from that intersection that will allow for a path construction and landscaping. So it'll be a little bit more green. The traffic in the meantime is going to be asked to flow in a clockwise direction around Morwell Avenue while these parts of the project are in place. So you'll be going around the block a bit rather than being able to go 2 ways for a short period of time.
Yep.
So just while the drainage and the utilities are being worked on, there will be, Watsonia Road's 2 way, driving around Morwell Avenue, around the RSL will be 1 way.
Yep.
Just to get that done, make it safe for everybody. And then as that drainage and utilities are completed and the path is put in, we'll gradually get back to 2 way. But what we do ask is please support your local businesses. Yeah. They're still functioning, they're still open. You may need to park a little bit further away. But if you do, please consider it some exercise. Look at it as a bit of exercise. We're just walking a little bit further if you can, and please continue to support local. They would really appreciate it.
And Alison, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there also discussions about putting a multi-level car park opposite the RSL?
There are works multi-level. I'm not aware of the multi-level, but there are works in place. So there's going to be a change to the car parking there. Yeah, I think your major car park is going to be down towards the intersection of Watsonia Road
Near the station.
and Greensborough. Yeah, and Greensborough Road and near the station. That's where your major parking is going to be.
Well, there we go. Well, look, Alison, the other thing I'd like to talk about before we wind up is ANZAC Day, which is coming up very quickly. Has Council finalised its ANZAC Day events?
Yes, it has. Yeah, so they're all in the diary. So for the northeastern end of Banyule, so we have the usual Montmorency Eltham RSL has 2 events. So one of them is the dawn service held at the Eltham Epitaph. And the other is the family service, which starts at 10:30 a.m. in Petrie Park, outside the RSL itself. And from 10 a.m., if you want to congregate in Weir Street and go on, join the march. So the march actually commences at 10 a.m. from the top of Weir Street, where the windmill is. And there are a lot of veterans, dignitaries, sort of wartime dignitaries, defence dignitaries lead the march. And then we have scouts. A lot of our scouts participate in that, as well as other community groups. And we march from Weir Street along Rattray Road, left to Mountain View Road, and into Petrie Park, down to the RSL. And we conduct the service from 10:30 a.m. And it's absolutely beautiful. I've had the privilege of attending every single one of these for the last 7 years, and not one time has it rained. Not one time. It's been perfect.
Oh boy, you better hope it doesn't rain now.
Yeah, got fingers crossed. There's always a first. But what's absolutely beautiful is being in a community space that is so well loved, and sitting and acknowledging such a significant national event.
Yeah.
And watching so many people come to this. It's lots of school kids come, lots of the local school kids come, and they come and then they go and do their fun things for the rest of the day, whether they, run around the area with their mates, or whether they have family barbecues, or whatever they do, go play footy, whatever they do, they'll come here first.
Yeah.
And they'll kick a footy on the oval, and you watch the trains go by, and the sun's out, usually. Fingers crossed it is again this time. And we listen to some singing. Some of our high school students, like lately it's been Eltham College students, they practice. They'll be practicing now. They practice some of our songs national songs that recognise our veterans, and they're excellent. The kids sing beautifully. They play beautifully. They are such, it is a legacy, and they are such a perfect example of community members who respect and appreciate, and they're talented.
Yep.
And they appreciate what our veterans have done for us. So that's in Sherborne.
Okay.
Now, there are other services. The Greensborough RSL also has a march up Main Street, similar time. There's the Watsonia RSL also holds their services. There's a dawn service, I think, at Greensborough. There's a dawn service at Watsonia. The mayor has double booked himself. I looked at our calendar. So I'm hoping the mayor comes with me to the dawn service at Eltham on the morning, and then pops across to the Greensborough RSL march.
Right.
But I'll have to tell him that. I'll have to tell him that to say you've double booked yourself. So we do that. There's also the rehab in the rehab in Heidelberg West there also holds their event. I can't remember the date for that. It is on our website, but sometimes the rehab is actually held on a couple of days out on
Right.
ANZAC Day. Yeah, but just double check the calendar for that. That should be in the on the Banyule website. Yeah, so they're the main events. There are others happening, so we're all attending something. So all of us will attend an event. Most of the wards hold an event, so
Yep.
we'll all be attending something. The Ivanhoe Epitaph has an event happening as well. So and that's on the day. That's on ANZAC Day as well. So you'll be able to see on the website where the events are held. There's a very good chance that the ward councillor will be at that event.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope the rain stays away. I'd really hope it because I'll be doing a dawn service and
Good.
catching
I
up
expect you to be there, Carl. Yeah.
with
Which one are you going to?
Greensboro. I do the
Go to the Green.
Memorial Park one.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Do you do the march as well?
Unfortunately, with my back problems, I won't be able to do a march this year.
Okay.
But normally I do a march.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you'll be there for the main service then.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So so I'm looking forward to that. I always look forward to this day. It's a perfect day, regardless of the weather.
It is that. And of course, it's more than just a football match.
Oh, of course it is.
Uh, that's right. I also have plenty of Collingwood and Essendon friends. They do the dawn service, they do the march, and then they're off to the game.
That's right. That's their day, and that's a special day
Absolutely.
for them. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
The AFL do well on that day as well.
Yeah, I believe it's called marketing, Carl. Oh, what you do?
Oh, hoisted on my own petard.
You brought it up.
I did.
You brought it up. But yeah, it is a special day,
Yeah.
and it is for our veterans. And what I love is that we acknowledge all our veterans now, regardless of their gender, regardless of their nationality or their age. We acknowledge all of them. And we're starting to, in the last few years, I've really noticed we've come to respect and acknowledge our Vietnam vets who were not appreciated in the 70s and 80s.
No.
No. And of course, a lot of our pop songs acknowledge them instead. So, I really see that, and then our more recent wars that we've been involved in, mostly as peacekeepers, they're also acknowledged as well. And you can see, well, I have seen, I look around and I can see there are younger Defence Force members there who clearly have lost someone more recently, say in the Afghanistan wars, and other more recent conflicts. So that's noticed.
Yeah. Yes. Well, look, Alison, whatever you do, I hope you enjoy your Anzac Day.
Oh, well, thank you, Carl, and you too.
With your family and friends. And on that note, I think we'll close the podcast for all of you out there. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day on Anzac Day. Remember the diggers. And Alison, thank you for your time in providing an overview of those main projects that Council have been involved in.
My pleasure.
And let's look forward to next month where we start looking again at some of the diversity in Banyule.
And there's a lot of it.
There is a lot of diversity, which is a good thing. Thank you, Alison. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.